Hello my friends, and welcome back to the next installment of the version 5 faction overview videos, this week continuing on as Rohan. Now I do apologize for being late on this upload. It was originally going to be last week, however last weekend I was granted access to the Warhammer 3 DLC, and I ended up just playing that, and I lost my weekend pretty swiftly after getting access to that. So now we're back with Rohan. That's okay. This week will be Rohan. Next week will be Mirkwood. And then I will look at doing a new campaign on the channel. So, in talking about Rohan, well, it's pretty obvious if you know anything about Lord of the Rings. You are a cavalry nation. You have the most amount of cavalry, the most readily available cavalry, and Medieval 2 is a game that definitely favors having cavalry. It is very powerful in this game engine, so you are very powerful as well. As for your starting regions, you have, of course, Edoras here, your capital. Dunharrow has been a fort for quite some time now. I think it was last changed into a fort, probably in version 3. I think in 2.2 it used to still be a village, but in at least as of version 3, to my knowledge, and so on, it is just a fort. But I'm pretty sure it does retain the old Dunharrow battle map if you actually have a battle there. I'm pretty sure that's still in the game, though very rare to actually end up fighting on that tile. First, you have the Hornburg, Helm's Deep to the west, Boldburg right by the Eisen crossing over here, Ginyard, Ododrith, Entwade, and finally Aldburg down here in the south. As for Rebel expansion, you really only have two provinces, Rockburg over here in the eastern Fangorn Forest, and the Tirith Anduin over here in the Wold. Those are your only Rebel expansions, as Isengard borders you to the west with Eisenrun, Durwath, and Isengard, along with a few starting forces, as you can see here. To the north, you are bordered by the Elves of Lothlorien, and to the northeast, the faction of Dol Guldur and Mordor have occupied the Brownlands and the swamps of Dagorlad over here. So, you don't have any Rebel expansion outside of these two territories. You are then immediately beset on all sides by allies, mountains, or enemies. So, talking about your starting characters, of course, King Theoden is your leader at the start of the game. Comes with the biography, giving him extra hit points and all the other juicy stuff that faction leaders get. Horn of Yorl as his retinue, along with his legendary sword, Hergrim. King of Rohan and General's Armor for a bit more authority and hit points. He does have a special ability, being Death and Glory. It's a one-time use effect that gives you a temporary fatigue reduction in exchange for extra combat effectiveness, morale, and actually reduces the morale of enemy troops. So use this when you're doing a massive cavalry charge, ideally after you've slayed the enemy captain or general, and then you can easily cause some mass routing to occur then. It is one-time use and does carry the permanent fatigue debuff after the effect has ended, which is something that there is discussion currently happening in the team about removing the fatigue debuffs from these abilities, because it just, in my opinion, it's just not worth it to have a fatigue reduction. If you're going to have a one-time use ability, or it can only be used a couple of times by a certain character so often in the campaign, it might as well not make your army worse for wear after the effect. So that's just my thought. There's a little bit of discussion going there, so that may change in the future. I'm definitely going to lobby for that change, as I think it should not be there. Anyway, that is King Theoden. He is locked for the first 10 turns. He can only move one tile, and that's just because of the presence of the upgraded roads here. The reason being that Grima Wormtongue has poisoned the king and with his words and deceit, and so you are now barred from using Theoden for the beginning of the campaign. But after 10 turns, he becomes King Theoden anew, and he can then therefore go wherever the heck he pleases. So you are barred from using your largest bodyguard size at the beginning of the campaign. Prince Theodred is your faction heir, standard bodyguard for him and Theoden, I should specify, and that is because bodyguards for Rohan are mounted and they are incredibly powerful. Rohan bodyguards is insanely good. Just in general, having a cavalry bodyguard is very powerful in Medieval 2. And the Divide and Conquer team years ago decided that they would limit the amount of cavalry bodyguards that you can have, because otherwise you could just solo entire armies with them. It was quite powerful. So Prince Theodred does start in, was Ginyard it was? Yeah, in Ginyard. Slightly bigger bodyguard size because he is the faction heir, so he gets extra bodyguard size there. His special ability is leadership, so he doesn't have the same as Theoden or as Eomer when we get to him. He doesn't have any other biography or anything at the moment, which is a bit unfortunate that your faction heir doesn't have anything special to his name, as he does die pretty quickly in the events of the films. He is off-screened pretty hard. I mean, you see his body and that's it. It's unfortunate for Theodred, but that is the way the story was written. Standard bodyguards for him as well. And I guess we'll talk about the starting forces. He comes equipped with some Aerid swordsmen, Airling archers, and peasant scouts. While in Edoras, you also have 2 Airling spearmen and a unit of Rohirrim. Next up is Eomer, the future king of Rohan through the events of the books and the films, but in Divide and Conquer, it may be Theodred. Eomer comes with 2 Rohirrim archers and 2 Rohirrim. His bodyguard is, of course, the standard bodyguard, but he, like Theoden, has the For Death and Glory special ability there. He does have his own biography, giving him extra hit points and 20% movement points. You'll notice Eomer can move very, very far. It's insane how quick he can go, and you'll arguably want to be using him with just cavalry in the probably throughout most of the campaign, just because of how far he can really take them on the battlefield there. He does have his special sword, Guthline, and Rohirrim shield, so extra hit points and a little more renown from Eomer. Ideally, you would send Eomer up north to take Rockburg or Tirith Anduin before sending him to the front lines against Isengard. Next up, Elfhelm, a regular general over in Aldburg. No special ability on him, and I think he's your only starting general that doesn't have a special ability. He, in the large town here, only has a unit of peasant militia. I'd honestly prefer for him to have the Aerid skirmishers as his bodyguard, just because the tabletop model for Elfhelm actually has him specialize in throwing spears. He's like the best in the entire Rohan roster in the Middle-earth strategy battle game, so I would honestly like to see him become an Aerid skirmisher instead. That's just my 2 cents on him. Aside of him, Eomund, the father of Eomer, starts off in Entwade and also has For Death and Glory. So it's 3 generals you have with this very powerful ability. He is the first Marshal of the Mark. No biography for him, but he does have that nice special ability and 2 good retinues there. He also has 1 Rohirrim archer, a peasant scout, and a peasant militia. Going down the line, we're almost done here. Erkenbrand is stationed at Helm's Deep, and he should have Helmingas as his bodyguard, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he does have the Helmingas, also garrisoned with 2 other units of Helmingas, 2 Airling spearmen, and 2 Airling axemen. He does have a special ability with leadership and is known as the commander of the Aerid. Also comes with the general's armor, giving him extra hit points. Getting into the end here, the next general is Gamling. Gamling, I believe, has the Meduseld Guard as his bodyguard. Or no, he actually has Rittermark Axeman. Someone else has Meduseld Guard. I think it's our next general. Yeah, it's Hama, isn't it? Gamling does have a biography for himself, giving him 1 extra hit point, some movement speed as well. That 20% is very nice and comes with leadership. And then finally, we get to Hama at the end here, and Hama is the one... Are you an Onodrith? You are. He has the Meduseld Door Ward, so your best spear unit and arguably your best infantry unit he has there. So keep him alive. He is a bastion of defense. Does come with his own biography for extra hit points, movement speed, and does have leadership as his special ability, along with the Rohirrim shield for 1 more hit point. So very unlikely to die, Hama is. So that is it for your starting forces. You also have a not a diplomat, but a spy that you start with just to the east of Edoras. As for your buildings and everything, going into your stables at the tier 1, you get Rohirrim archers, and Aerid skirmishers, so quite the variety at your tier 1 stables. The Marshal stables is going to add the Rittermark cavalry and the Aerid lancers, with the Maras stables at the end adding the Royal Guard and the Shield Maidens of Rohan, 2 very powerful units. Your standard barracks is a bit bare bones. At tier 1, you only get the Yorling Axemen and the Airling Spearmen. And then at the guard barracks, you will add the Meduseld Door Wards in Edoras only, I believe. Yes, it is. Yorling, Rittermark Axemen, Aerid Footmen, and Aerid Swordsmen. Your range is also quite limited, as you only have the practice range, which gives you Airling Archers. However, in Helm's Deep, the practice range will also... Or no, it doesn't give you the Helming, as in Helm's Deep, that comes from the Hornburg. So you only have 1 basic archer unit that's available everywhere, being the Airling Archers. or you can get the Helmingus in the Hornburg. And that's not talking about the Riders of the Fold or the other cavalry that you get as Rohan, which should be in the stables here. I didn't mention them, but you do also have Riders of the Fold, but they're only in the East or the West Fold, so kind of these regions over here, and I believe right over here in Ginyard. I think you can get them in Edoras also, at least they should be. Oh no, they're not, so I think they're only in Ginyard or East Fold. I'd have to double check. Are they anywhere else? Because they're only East or West Fold. You can't get them in Onodrith, or no, you can't get them in Entwade. This is good to know. They are your best horse archer. Yeah, I think they're only in Aldburg and Ginyard for, you know, they're basically that they're Riders of the Folds. They're only in those two regions, but they are quite good horse archers at their job, and horse archers are quite powerful. As for the rest of your unique buildings, well, you are a Northman nation. You have tier 3 armory, standard blacksmith, builders, ports, all that other good stuff. You get up to the tier 5 of the marketplace, but you only get tier 2 roads. You are not a Dunedain nation, so you only get level 2 roads. I should say also you are not neither a Dunedain nor a Dwarven nation, as both of them get the tier 3 roads. And in fact, I think even the elves do as well. Everything else is pretty standard. For your guilds, you get the Pole Turners Guild, giving you your melee weapon bonus for both ranged and melee infantry, and then the Royal Pole Turners Guild, which will give you a global morale bonus to all troops faction-wide. The Horse Breeders Guild is the one you're more likely to get, increasing the replenishment time and recruitability of your cavalry. Horse Breeders Guild does that. The Master Horse Breeders Guilds allow you to train Arid Lancers, so you get your tier 3 stables unit right there. And the Ural Stables will allow you to get Royal Guard, which I think are no longer locked, or it actually says they're only available in Edoras. I could have sworn they were unrestricted. In fact, yeah, they are unrestricted because they are available in other nations. That's just an old description that needs to be modified. Other unique buildings you have in Edoras, if I can click on it, please. There we go. You do have Meadowseld, the Golden Hall, giving you a 5% law bonus and recruitment of your diplomats, so not too special of a building here. A lot of other capital buildings will give you a construction bonus, but you do not sadly get that as Rohan. In the Hornburg, you do have the Hornburg itself as a special building, giving you a stronger gate and recruitment of the Helmingus, as I had gone over earlier, and your other unique building, the Caverns of Helm's Deep, which are tied to your script with the dwarves. So I'll talk about that now. Once you have allied with either Erebor or Eredluin for 20 turns, you will be given an offer to allow their dwarves to settle in the Hornburg. After those 20 turns, they will start to settle. 2 years later, you will have an upgraded version of the Caverns of Helm's Deep. Actually, no, it's 3 years, so 12 turns. This will upgrade to a tier 2 building, which has additional effects that I'll show shortly on here. And after 2 more years after that, so a total of 5 years after the 20 odd turns, that's 40 turns of being allied, or maybe it's 44. No, it's 40. After 5 years, 40 turns of being allied to the dwarves, this will upgrade to tier 3, giving you recruitment of dwarven travelers, guards of the caves, gives you extra income and extra free upkeep, as well as finally tier 4 armory that you get from the Caverns of Helm's Deep as they become the Glittering Cave. So I'll show a save of that shortly here. In fact, might as well now. So here we are with the tier 2 version of the Caverns of Helm's Deep, the Dwarven Caverns of Helm's Deep, which will give you 1 free upkeep slot, reduce the building costs, and gives you guards of the caves and dwarven travelers for recruitment. Just giving, basically you're giving the dwarves a new home here, and they wish to protect those caves. It also functions as a garrison building, so it'll give you 2 units of, I think it'll be Westron defenders currently in the iteration of the build that will help you to defend. So it's a multi-use building. This one will happen 3 years or 12 turns after the 20 turns have passed. And now I'll load a save that has the final upgraded version, and this will happen 8 more turns after that. So really you just need to be allied to the dwarves for 40 turns, and you also need to pay 3,000 gold to fund their initial expedition into the Hornburg. So here we are with the final tier of the Glittering Caves. We retain the building cost and free upkeep slots. However, you also get an increase of 100 building income, population growth, tradable goods, reinforced gates, which are already present in the Hornburg, but it also reduces your building costs globally by 5%. Masterwork Chainmail is a significant upgrade for your forces, and then it still gives the guards of the caves and the dwarven travelers. So a very important building. You're going to want to push for an alliance with the dwarves, and that might be a bit difficult in the current implementation of Divide and Conquer, as factions have been a bit more stubborn lately to actually go into an alliance with you. So here we are now back at turn 2, and I did forget one thing involving the King Theoden script, and that is that while he is under Grima's lies and deceivements, you actually lose some building income faction-wise. You do have a bit of a tax income decrease, less trade. So you'll notice after 10 turns that all of your other settlements will start to make more money, but at the beginning you're not bad financially. You're in okay standing, but your king's purse is lower than it actually would be. I believe it goes up to 2,500 on very hard once those 10 turns have passed. But you'll notice there is some financial loss during this time, somewhat weakening you as a faction. So in general campaign strategy, well, your primary enemy is going to be Isengard. They do have a few starting armies. Luag starts here with a half stack. Lortz has his initial army here. Ugluk is bringing his forces east. And we even have another captain right outside of Foldberg. Isengard will go as far as Bregnos, and you will start off neutral with them. And oftentimes Grima will actually approach you for trade. But after the second turn, expect the armies to then assault you at Foldberg. So, recommended strategy would be to turtle with Rohan, at least until you can get rid of the initial Isengard armies. Now, you aren't going to want to fight them in city battles because you don't get to use your cavalry. Instead, you want to take the fight to Isengard, but you want to watch out for the fords here. This functions as a river battle, and there is very little room to actually charge with your cavalry. Now, you can make it work with your infantry and your ground forces. You can protect the fords with Prince Theodred and try to recreate the events of the film, but Isengard has significantly stronger infantry. They have stronger archers than you. They only really don't outclass you when it comes to their cavalry. That is your strength against them. So you want to be fighting them in the open field and not in the woods or at the river crossing, if you can help it, if you're using a lot of cavalry. You know, one of these starting armies, I can't remember which one, but one of them will have trolls in the beginning. It might even be this man right here. He doesn't have trolls in it, but someone does have a starting unit of trolls. But as you can see, this is quite the significant early force. Orkmen, Spearguard, Baneguard, Dunhird Slayers, Uruk-hai Pikemen are going to be very hard to deal with as Rohan, especially the Dunlending Longspears. You're going to need skirmishers for those. So there are some very strong initial forces that you will have to deal with Isengard, but they and Dunland are your chief enemies. So for the most part, I would recommend take Eomer, capture Rockburg and Tirith Anduin, leave a governor out here so that they can protect it. Should Dol Guldur ever decide that they want to cross over and attack you, you can mop the field with Dol Guldur. They are very, very weak, unless they send the Nazgul at you. And then send all of your other forces westwards to hold the line, and eventually, as soon as you feel ready, start pushing in to the Isengard territories. Now do note, if you do take the Isengard capital itself, they do get a last stand army that is triggered upon that, and that army will have Uruk-hai Pikemen, Uruk-hai crossbows. I believe that army also has trolls, so you're going to have some strong forces to initially fight with, and if you push too early onto Isengard, you might get overwhelmed by the scripted armies and the hordes that get unleashed by Saruman. Dunland themselves aren't too terrible to deal with, but do watch out for the Dunlending Pikemen. Those long spears are fast on the battlefield, arguably too fast, and they are quite deadly. They will be your biggest threat from Dunland, but you do have the tools to counter those, being your archers, your horse archers, your arid skirmishers. You have ways to deal with those units. But your archers aren't going to be so effective against the heavy armor that Isengard likes to bring against you. In fact, your archers are almost meaningless against Isengard plate mail. They won't do anything you'll really want some catapults at that point, or a lot of arid skirmishers to use their javelins. That is your main form of dealing with the Isengard armor, or Rittermark axemen with their armor piercing. Now, you might be able to find an alliance with the Fisher folk of Enedwaith, as often Isengard does go to war with them. You might be able to get some friendly faces over here. Of course, you are allied to Gondor, and I believe Dol Amroth as well. Yes, you are allied to both of those nations, and you were allied to Lothlorien, as when Yorl the Young finally came down from the Anduin to the south and settled in the lands of Rohan, they were protected by mists that were given or sent over by Galadriel to conceal their presence from, I believe it was orcs that was tracking them at this point in history. So that is why you are allied to the elves of Lorien there, and also that they in the films did assist with the Battle of Hornburg, which some people have issues with. It wasn't in the books. I think it's cool though. It shows more involvement from the elves than they otherwise did, and yes, they were fighting their own war in the books. They fought against Oguldur, but in the films we don't get to see that. It's nice to see them being more involved with other events of Middle-earth. So I think that's about it for campaign strategy. Once you've taken Isengard and you're fighting Dunland here, you're going to have a lot of financial basis to really do whatever you want. Most likely you'll want to help Gondor fight against Mordor at this point, as they will not hold forever. You will need to help them at some point, and you can definitely deal with the forces of Mordor no problem outside of their Black Uruk halberds. Again, just have like catapults or have arid skirmishers to help you deal with those, or bring some infantry forces. So I think that's it for the campaign map. The only other thing I can really think of that was changed is there are a few more apiary resources here, so you might see increased income from your trade versus in the past. And I can't remember exactly where they are. I think there's one somewhere in Edoras. Yeah, there it is. Basically just a reference to like the honey mead and other stuff that they would have down here. It was mainly given for an expansion with the Anduin faction to have more places that they could actually build their beehives, but that does also boost your income slightly in Rohan as well. So I will now take it over to the battle map. Now welcome to the battle map. So I've split this up into the cavalry, the infantry, and then the missile units over here. Missile cavalry are going to be included in the cavalry portion of this battle overview. So starting off with the General's Bodyguard, these are your Rohan bodyguards, a 17-man strong battalion, 9 attack, 15 charge bonus with 28 defense. They do have a secondary weapon, but it is also 9 attack, so same attack stat either in charge or out of charge, but they do start to use hand weapons. These guys are incredibly durable. Just keep them away from pikemen and armor-piercing javelins, and they will do just fine for you. They may not get as many kills on the map as some of your other cavalry are capable of, and that is just a factor of their smaller unit size, but they are still otherwise very capable and able to dish out a lot of damage and punch deep into enemy formations, where they will get many, many kills while keeping your general alive. So very powerful charge. 15 is insane. They do get a bonus in shrubs, but a malus in barren, forest, and snow biome. So quite the powerful bodyguard, and you'll see those stats mimicked in the Royal Guard Battalion when we get to them. So with your militia level cavalry, first of all, you have the peasant scouts, and I didn't say this in the campaign overview, but both these and your spear militia come from your town hall or your castle building lines respectively. So peasant scouts, 91 men in the battalion, which is huge. That's almost infantry level. That's like elite infantry level in terms of number of soldiers in the battalion. Only 3 attack, but 7 charge is quite strong. 3 defense. They're very much like a glass cannon that doesn't hit particularly hard, but you can see these guys do a lot of damage. You can spam them in high numbers. You can pretty much take out any lighter infantry unit with these guys, send them after archers. Don't expect too much work that they can do against enemy cavalry or even wargs, but if you do sandwich a unit between 2 peasant scouts, it is more or less basically dead. They can be, for their stats are misleading, they are still quite powerful as they are light cavalry. Do know that they may die on contact with some heavier infantry though if they charge into them, but save them for lighter uses or chasing enemies down. Our next unit here, this is going to be your bread and butter throughout the entire campaign. You should always be using these guys as a bare standard. expect your armies to have a lot of them. That is the Rohirrim. They are light cavalry with 5 attack, no secondary weapons, so they keep the spear out, but 10 charge and 10 total defense. That is a very powerful charge for such a readily available cavalry unit. All you need is the basic stables, and you have these guys. They don't cost too much upkeep, and even for some other nations, they act as a mercenary cavalry unit. Being that they are a Rohan cavalry unit, all Rohan cavalry mounts have a higher mass stat than other equivalent mounts, other factions. So they punch deeper into enemy formations, and they have a bit of a speed bonus. So Rohan typically has faster cavalry and more powerful cavalry. In terms of the horse itself, that is also reflected in the stats here. I mean, 5, 10, that is quite formidable. Use these guys a lot. They come in 83 soldiers per battalion on very large unit sizes, so they can do a lot of damage. Upgraded peasant scouts. These guys are absolutely your bread and butter, and recruiting many of them. Next off, the Rohirrim archers. These guys not as great in melee, though they do still have a 7 charge bonus, meaning that they can do quite a lot of damage after they've expended their ammunition, though their wider formation limits their usability in charging purposes. 4 melee attack, 4 missile attack, and they are skilled against enemy mounts. They do fare well against other wargs or other cavalry, though not by much. Their stats still leave them a bit to be desired. They have average accuracy and short range, but they do each carry 32 arrows, so you have quite the volume of fire that can come from these guys. Another advantage of horse archers is they have a faster firing animation, so it's not quite twice as fast as a regular archer, but they will shoot quicker than a ground archer. It might be twice as fast, just to give you like an approximation. They get through their ammo quite quickly, even though they have 32 missiles. Your best use for these guys is going to be against like Dunlending pikemen, or other lower armored, low tier spear infantry that Isengard might throw at you. Going into our second tier of cavalry, first off the Aerid Lancers. These guys are basically just upgraded Rohirrim. Better stats, 7 attack, you get into 12 charge territory now here with 18 defense. They have a very powerful charge. They're a little bit slower than the Rohirrim, but they are quite more formidable in their cavalry role. So pretty much just a direct upgrade, more or less. Next to them, the Aerid Skirmishers. These are your first javelin unit that you have. They have armor-piercing javelins at that, and each soldier carries 5 of them. You note the accuracy is specified as low here, so you do want to park them relatively close to your targets. You can help it, so Isengard Uruk-hai Infantry, Isengard Pikemen, late-tier Dunland stuff that's more heavily armored. These guys are going to be your counter for that. They'll also do pretty well against bodyguard units and wargs as well. They can skirmish from wargs while taking out plenty of the riders with those javelins. In melee, they're not too bad, though they're not as well equipped as the Aerid Lancers at only 6 melee, a 9 charge, and 12 defense. A little squishier, but still quite an important unit, and you're going to want a lot of these guys, especially as you get into the late game. You might be fighting you might be fighting Mordor's Great Beasts, you might be fighting Harad Mumakil. You're going to want Aerid Skirmishers to counter elephant-type units. Next off, the Rittermark Cavalry. These guys are fantastic. They have 8 attack, 8 charge, and 20 defense. They are good against mounts, and they are effective against armor. So these guys are true heavy armor killers for your cavalry contingent. They are very powerful. Charge them into Uruk-hai bodyguards and watch the general just die almost instantaneously. It's quite powerful what these guys can do. And even staying in dedicated melee, their two-handed axes allow them to dish out quite a lot of damage. Next off, the Riders of the Fold. I guess they are the upgraded version of the Rohan Archers. They've got 8 melee, 6 missile attack, so higher there, 8 charge, 19 defense with good morale and high accuracy. So just a better version of the Rohirrim Archers, able to land their shots better. They'll be able to withstand damage better. They really look like mounted Helmingas with that full chainmail look. Though do note they are at a smaller bodyguard size, and they're going to be more expensive than your Rohirrim Archer. But if you can get them, choose these guys over the Rohirrim. Going into our last cavalry here, not quite the Uber tier yet as we get to the Royal Guard, but the Shield Maidens of Rohan, who do have feminine voice lines here, which makes sense. They are Shield Maidens, so they don't stand like, these chaps over here. The Shield Maidens have great stats, 10 melee, 12 missile attack with average accuracy, so better accuracy than the other Aerid Skirmishers. They actually carry 6 javelins and have a slight range advantage as well, so they're going to do better off with their javelins. They have more javelins per battalion and better combat stats. I think they are only available. I forget if they're region locked or not. Are they? I don't think they are. I think they're available anywhere that you have the tier 3 stable. So as long as you have that, you should be able to get the shield maidens, to my knowledge. And then our last cavalry unit, our Royal Guard. These guys are basically just your bodyguard unit, but in a full battalion of 51 soldiers, so same stats there. One more attack stat for whatever reason on that, but the same charge and the same defense, and a bigger battalion. They are available anywhere as long as you have the tier 3 barracks, and they are the best of the best when it comes to your cavalry. Now, I don't think they'll beat Swan Knights when it comes to top tier cavalry in the game, but being that they are so readily available, it definitely gives them a contender for the best cavalry unit in the mod. But I think Swan Knights would beat them, and maybe like the High Elven cavalry unit is probably going to be a bit better. And that's all I can think of. Maybe Temple Knights are also around this tier. Be interesting to do maybe a top cavalry video for version 5. I know Galadirthan did one in version 4.5. I can't remember who the winner was. I think it was the High Elven cavalry unit. But that is it for your mounted forces, so pretty much half of your roster is just cavalry. So now we'll get into the infantry contingent. Starting off, Peasant Militia. Not much to say about these guys. They get skill from, they don't get shield wall. They're your standard 2 attack, like 5 defense peasant unit. Poor morale, they're not going to hold forever, but they are cheap and available anywhere. You can use them as an early anvil, while your cavalry acts as the hammer, but there are better alternatives as you get on. Now, if you do get the blacksmithing upgrades on these guys, that will jump them up to 8 defense. If you get them a melee attack bonus, that'll put them up to 3. And that is not bad. They'll definitely hold a lot longer than they would as they were unupgraded. They're significantly better if you can get like leather tanners and blacksmiths to give them better equipment, and they definitely shine with those upgrades. Now we're going to our main line units from your barracks. First of all, the Yorling Axemen. 5 attack, 4 charge, and 8 defense. Now the one advantage these guys have is they are one of the few axe-wielding units that actually has retained their effectiveness against armor. So they really just function like macemen now. They can actually do a surprising amount of damage to the enemy. They're very aggressive, though their stats are otherwise quite low. They're good against like Urukai infantry, other heavily armored units that might get thrown at you. Should you fight dwarves, you might want to use these guys, as your armor piercing is somewhat limited. You don't have a whole lot of options outside of javelins and a few axe-wielding units. But that is just something nice that these guys have that other axe don't anymore, and that is the armor piercing. Next to them, the Yorling Spearmen, your first proper spear unit. 3 attack, 12 defense, a significant upgrade over the Peasant Militia, and they also get the shield wall formation as well, allowing them to function better defensively or offensively by pushing into the enemy. You know they have significantly better defensive stats than the Yorling Axemen, 4 more defense, but 2 less attack at the cost of also not having the armor piercing. So more or less equal in what they can do. These guys are going to dish out a lot more damage. These guys are going to hold the line a lot better. Now going into the tier 3 of the infantry, Arad Footmen are pretty much just a direct upgrade to the Yorling Spearmen, going up to 5 attack and 17 defense. So 5 more defense from these guys, 2 more attack, a better charge. But they do have 25 odd less men in their battalion. They will function significantly better as a bulwark defensive unit that you can use in the battlefield. Good in sieges and that sort of thing, good at fighting enemy cavalry, just limited by the mobility. But if you just have a front line of a bunch of spears and then a bunch of cavalry, you are pretty much good to go as Rohan. Next off, the Rittermark Axemen. Now these guys are the infantry variant of the mounted Rittermark cavalry. 7 attack, 7 charge, 14 defense. Effective against armor is very nice to have. Use them as just good medium tier shock infantry. They'll be good at fighting against enemy generals, Urukai pikemen, Gunlanding warband units that have higher armor. These guys are great at taking them out at least in the hand-to-hand combat where your cavalry might otherwise be busy. Send these guys to go into the foray. They're great if you have to fight like Moranin halberds, that the Black Uruk halberds that Mordor has. They can be good against them as well. Just let them fight them in melee while your cavalry tries to avoid those sticky, those nasty spear points. Then we get into the Arad Swordsmen, just a better melee variant of your Yorling Spearmen. 9 attack, 5 charge, and 15 defense. They also get the shield wall as well, so they can withstand enemy cavalry charges pretty much as good as a spearman, as long as you're using that formation. They're pretty much your only real sword unit, actually. Because everything else, it's like an axe unit. They're your only infantry sword variant unit. Unless you count your archers and stuff. They're your only, I guess, somewhat aggressive sword and board unit that you've got here. Final unit is going to be the Metacell Door Wards, your elite uber tier spears. Pretty much Royal Guard stats, 8 attack, 6 charge, and 28 defense. These guys are absolute tanks. They will hold the line till the very end. They do not have locked morale. They can rout if things get too grim. They are only available, I believe, in Edoras as far as I'm aware, so you are going to only be training them there. But they are just an excellent spear unit. In the field, they can be great at holding the line for ages. They will not falter, or in a defensive siege, they're going to be great at holding choke points until more support can arrive. But even then, they have the melee stats to actually dish out respectable damage to the enemy as well. Now, finally, we move on to the archers. So, to tier 1, what you get at the practice range anywhere are the Airling archers. Now, these guys aren't too great, however, they are better in melee than they are at actually firing their ammunition. They have 5 melee attack compared to 3 missile attack and only 7 defense. Abysmal accuracy, it's pretty bad, only 18 arrows per shot. So you are not really an archer nation, you are more so a cavalry nation, and you have a bit of good infantry options, but you really lack in the archer department, though you do have some options with the skirmishers and the horse archers, but on the ground, it's pretty rough for these yearling archers. I would honestly say avoid using these guys unless you absolutely need them for like missile defense or for whatever reason. I would just recruit more infantry and have more cavalry rather than getting the yearling archers, but to each their own. Now for an archer unit that is significantly better and you will want to field, that is the Helmingas. Again, just like the yearling archers, they're much better in melee than they are at shooting, with 8 total melee attack compared to 5 missile. However, they then join into the average accuracy gang and have 170 meter range with 25 or 24 arrows. That 14 defense with the shield and armor does allow them to counter skirmish very effectively with other archer nations or against things like Urukai crossbows, Urukai archers, or whatever else you might fight. The Helmingas are solid at that, and you may even consider using them as your second line behind your spears, in which case, if they ever run out of ammo, they can then join into the melee fight. And our final unit here for the ground skirmisher force, even though really they don't really act as skirmishers and they're more so infantry, but they're a bit of a specialist unit for you at the same time. That is the dwarves, the guards of the caves. 10 melee attack, 11 missile with 4 charge and 25 defense. Incredibly tanky, only really out defensed by the meadow-celled guard on the ground. They have 50 meter range with their throwing axes that are armor piercing, though they only have 2 of them. Included them here because they do have a missile attack, and they're great at functioning as a frontline unit on the battlefield. Allow them to maybe set up in front of your spears or maybe to the side of your spears. They can throw their axes, and they're going to want an open space like this because otherwise the guys in front are going to obstruct their throws, and then just let them do work in melee. The dwarves are very, very solid units there. And I'm a big fan of them. I like the way they look. I like the fact that they throw axes. They're just something different for Rohan, and I've always thought that is quite fun. So I am now just going to make a rough battle line now with our missile units here. Not putting a whole lot of thought into this. Put them onto AI assistance, which it never really works out for me now, does it? But we'll give it a shot today. Maybe I can make something happen with the cavalry. Now, our enemy is the next faction we have left to fight, so it's not a themed matchup. But we are going to be fighting the Woodland Realm, who I will be covering next weekend as the final overview video for version 5. It's amazing that we got through this so quickly. Go ahead and charge into those horse archers if we can. Taking a lot of damage there from the Adraikarn, I think they are, the Ethiricon. Let's get in there, lads. And we do have a lot of missiles coming inbound, so how well can I manage a bunch of cavalry that I just threw into my control? Let's find out, shall we? We're a bit stuck in melee there. I'd like to charge behind those. Come on, lads. Keep running. Get behind. Running into the My Theory wire. Elder Council are charging into us, that's okay. Get some Arid Lancers in there. We have over here some shield maidens. I'm gonna charge into the back of the elves here. They do have some Elven King's Gate Guard, which are, I believe, good against cavalry, which is making this a little worse than it would otherwise be. See if I can charge into these Elven King's Bow Guard now. Our front lines aren't doing so well. They are buckling a bit. Go for these arid heroes, shall we? Peasant scouts, keep moving. Pull back. We want to be cycle charging here if we're going to win this battle. I gave the elves quite the strong force. Charging right into the enemy's general. Maybe we can get a few kills. Oh, there's Hinny Dower over here. We need to take those out. Forgot about the Hinny Dower. Yeah, those guys are probably doing a ton of damage to me right now. Where's our Royal Guard at? Their Royal Guard died. Did I kill them? Oh, they're a bit messed up at the moment. We did shut down the Hinny Dower. It looks like they're getting destroyed by the Shield Maidens. Oh, no, those are the skirmishers. There's some Ethericon over here. We're being chased pretty hard by these Elven King's Axe Guard. Fortunately, the elves are beating us in the cavalry department. We're gonna get these door wards to fight the Ents for us. The Ents are going to be a significant problem. Now, where are our Shield Maidens? They might be usable here. Where are you guys? Oh, they're way over here. Okay, let's pull them in. Okay, let's try to charge into the Ents now. As long as we're not getting counter-charged, we might be able to get a few kills here. Some damage has been dealt, not a lot. Sterling excellence, get back into combat, please. Let's deal with those generals. Being chased by woodland warriors, we don't want to have that happening. Things are routing. May have given myself a little too much trouble here.
Only half our force remains.
Shield Maiden, start firing, please. Definitely need you guys to be doing something a little bit better here. Royal Guard, let's go over here now. I think we've cleared up a lot of the elves. In my theory, we are fighting our spearmen over here. Let's go save them. Got some armor-piercing axes that we also need to keep protecting. Our cavalry, get out of there. Our Shield Maidens won that fight, which is great. We can now use them against the woodland warriors. Big charge coming up behind the Elder Council, still throwing javelins at us. Where are our dwarves? They're in combat. They're not doing so well here. I think we are turning the tide of battle. Our cavalry, do I want to just charge into those Ethericon? I think I do. Get like an actual charge, please. Red skirmishers taking a bit of damage there, that's okay. The maidens are in combat. Our general's not doing so well. Our Royal Guard also definitely got a bit messed up here. That's okay. Shield Maidens, let's hit into those woodland warriors now. We're getting a little bit messed up over here. Come on, guys, get out of there. We're getting some routing. That's okay. My theory with the wire charge did wreck us a little bit there. We have a lot of arid heroes shooting at us. Some Hinny Dower. There's their general. Let's go try to take him down. I think if I take him down, I'll be doing a lot better here. Shield Maidens, let's save your ammo for a second. Maybe I can use that to kill the Ents. We're not doing so well over here. The Earling archers are being killed by the Gate Guard. Our cavalry going to charge into those guys. Looks like we've killed none of the Ents so far, which is to be somewhat expected. You guys kill the Arid Hearth. Shield Maidens, let's get you into a better position. Our door wards are holding the line, but not for long. Might need to throw some javelins in there. Oh, there goes our general. That's not good. Our troops may begin to rout now. Here, fire into that blob, please. Talks about our general. We do have some lancers still alive. We might be able to pull this up. We have a few javelins into the Elven King's Axe Guard. I would rather throw them at the Ents, but I think just weakening these elite infantry is a better use of our ammo right now. It's gonna be close if we actually can win this. Seems like we're doing okay. The Axe Guard here are wavering. Helming is firing in melee. Just those Ents that are really going to be an issue for us. Who else is still? The Lancers are way back here. They're so far away. I don't know where their general is. He's somewhere in the battlefield. I think he's... Oh, he's right there. There he is. Let's get rid of those Ethericon.
Pray something changes in the
A lot of our units are routing because of those Ents. This isn't great. Let's try to charge into the Axe Guard here. Maybe our line can last just a bit longer. Those Ents are going to be a significant problem. But we do have Arid Lancers finally returning to combat here, as long as those Arid Swordsmen can survive. We felled one Ent so far, which isn't great. Big charge into the back of the Axe Guard, though. That's going to get quite a few kills against those Elves, but we are being countercharged by the Woodland Warriors. We only have 2 Rittermark Axemen left. That's not great, so we've lost all of our armor-piercing capability. But we still have the Lancers. Our Arid Swordsmen are beginning to rout. Let's try to charge the Ents then. We really need to work on those. On big charge. Can we get a few more Ents down? I think we did get a few there. Ents are dying. They're down to what, 6 there? 5? That was a good charge. We'll have to keep cycle charging on them. Pull out, lads. Here, you guys, we got some people coming back to the melee. Gonna hit those Ents again. The direct charge is gonna be a little bit brutal. But as long as the Ents aren't counter-charging us. There we go, a few more Ent kills. Like one more, I'll take it. Every kill counts for a lot. I don't think we have anyone else who's back here. A few Royal Guards still fighting here. Elven King's Gate Guard just fighting to the bitter end. These Elves refuse to yield as long as their general is still alive. There he is. Might send the Royal Guard to go try to assassinate him real fast. We are beating the Elves over here. They're basically just fighting to the death. Royal Guard going in for a last charge against the general. Where they get him is way over here. Can they slay him? We're going to charge the Ents directly. Rough charge because we're going to get counter hit there. That's okay. We may have slayed their general. He is still alive. He is still alive. That is insane. That's crazy that he is still fighting at this point. Alright, let's try to avoid the Ents. There we go. This has been a very brutal battle. But it looks like I've actually made this one possible for myself, pending how well those Ents do against us here. Let's try to avoid the Ents if we can. We have a few archers that can still fire. Arid footmen coming back. I think everything else has routed though. Fire a few shots into the Ents. Come on, lads. Get in there. Big charge. As long as we get them in the rear, we might be able to get a few more Ent kills here. There we go. Another one goes flying. Looks like 2 are down. Only 2 Ents remain. But you guys need to finish off this one man who's over here. That Axe Guard fighting to the death. General, get out of there, please. Go smush the Elven King's Gate Guard, who... Shield Maidens, I've actually just completely taken down. We're okay then. Well, it's just this one very powerful Axe Guard that is getting completely surrounded by our Arid Footmen, and they just do not care at all, now do they? Still got 2 Ents left that we need to slay. I think with that we will finally win the battle. Huracan is running. There are some Arid heroes still firing into our ranks here. That's unfortunate. Do they have the glistening arrows? There might be some Hinny Dower left on the battlefield, I'm not sure. If you guys chase him down, it's really just these Ents that need to go down. Where is our Lancers? There they are. Arid Footmen will do their best, though they're really not likely to win that fight. One Gate Guard is fighting our Helmingas. Maybe we can get them to surround. Here comes a charge. We might be able to slay another Ent here. This is the hard part, is just dealing with these dang Ents. There's just a few of the Woodland Warriors still fighting. Can't believe this. The militia unit is still fighting this late into the battle. It just shows how powerful those Ents are, keeping them in this fight. This is really it, though. I think we pretty much won the battlefield at this point, as long as I can take out the Ents, which I think will be okay for it. Big charge. Come on, can the Royal Guard do it? There goes another, and the last ent has fallen. With that, it's just the Arid here and the Ethericon. This battle is over, a bloody one, but I finally won a battle during the battle overview, I guess. I've been making the enemy too strong, and I was a little bit worried about the elves this time. But that will do it for the Rohan overview. Look at that, we traded one man for one elf that whole battle. That'll do it for Rohan. I will see you guys next week with the Wooden Realm.